He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women working to make coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. Today is a special day. I'm going to do this from time to time. I'm going to focus on a guest who grew up in coastal Mississippi and gone on to do some amazing things in their lives. But they never lost their love for coastal Mississippi. They represent us to the world. They are the best, actually, of what coastal Mississippi and Mississippi has to offer. Today, we're going to have a Coast Vue session with my old friend Don Wilson. And let me tell you about him. I want to give a little bit more information so you can get a sense of who we're going to be talking to. He's an award-winning producer and director and editor on feature-length documentary films, national commercials, television news, NFL sports broadcasts, hit network sitcoms, comedy shows, major motion picture trailers, TV spots, primetime dramas, HBO and Showtime music and comedy specials, 5 Olympic Games, and high-end corporate videos. Don was one of the founding fathers of the music video, literally helping to create the MTV style. In fact, Fortune magazine once named him one of the most important editors in the music video business. He won a Video Music Award and was nominated for several MTV Music Awards. On the long list of musical acts he's worked with is Bon Jovi, Sting, Michael Jackson, Rod Stewart, Pearl Jam, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, The Pretenders, and Alanis Morissette. His list of accomplishments go on, and he grew up in Bayou View right here in Gulfport, Mississippi. And I might add, he has a famous sister, Jill Wilson Newton, who also went to L.A. to blaze some trails. We'll share her story in just a few minutes. Welcome to Coast Vue, my old friend. I usually say welcome to the studio, but you're actually in your Los Angeles studio today. It's the real deal. Don, how you doing, buddy?
Infinite loop, Ricky.
Do I?
I said we're in an infinite loop, studio to studio, man. It's fantastic to be here. If I can't be there in person, I guess this is the next best thing.
Yeah, it's great. It's been good to stay in touch with you and watch your success over these years, man. You've done well. Congratulations. I'm really proud of you. But there's no stopping you, is there?
Well, I don't know how to stop. Look at you. That doesn't seem very retired to me, my friend. I can't stop. When you love what you do, it's really not work. You know, work is the things that don't go right. But, you know, I love the challenge of trying to find time to take off.
Yeah, we mentioned Jill. I tried to get Jill to sit there with you. I graduated with Jill. Yeah. And she really did go to L.A. to do some trailblazing, didn't she?
She did. Things were not going well in a marriage she was in at the time, and I hit her up. I took her to Three Rivers and said, hey, I'm going to L.A. What do you think? And 10 minutes later, she was committed, and we were on the way up, I think 3 days later. And as you know, she just blazed the trail, man. She was one of the founding women in network television casting. It was all run by men for many, many years.
Wow.
It's insane.
Wow. I wish she would have joined us, but maybe one day I can talk her into doing a show just with her.
We'll get her.
You've had a lot of successful projects over the years. I think one of the ones that you're most known for, but it's not the only one. There's a lot that you've done that's been extraordinarily successful. You directed and produced and edited Michael Jackson's "The Man in the Mirror" music video. That song and the video were actually very critically acclaimed. It was the fourth single from his Bad album, and it was the 10th number one hit that he had. And he didn't write the song, but it was one of the most important. You actually helped Michael develop the concept for the video. Tell me about that collaboration process. I mean, that's got to be fascinating looking back on that.
Man, it was my life-changing moment. By the way, it was co-written by Glenn Ballard from, I believe he's from Vicksburg.
Oh, wow,
and,
good.
I'm pretty sure he's in the Mississippi Music Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And, gosh, man, I was going through a divorce at the time and staying at the Sunset Hyatt on Sunset Boulevard, across from the Comedy Store. And the record label sent me the Bad album, and I listened to it, and I was sort of underwhelmed after Thriller. it's set for Man in the Mirror. And I told a friend of mine who was with me that night, I said, man, that if I ever had a shot at doing one of these, that would be my choice. And whatever, man, however that God thing works, it worked for me that time.
So how did you so tell me about getting paired up with him, and then what was that like?
So I'll try to make this quick, but it's a really cool story. Before that, it was the beginning, the Wild Wild West of music videos, and I just landed at the right time. I'm a drummer. I strongly believe that from being from the South and, the way we grew up, man, every woman was ma'am,
Yes.
manners and etiquette and integrity. And it was refreshing out here, and I just did not have a problem getting jobs early on, and so I was doing sitcoms, and MTV was getting ready to launch, and I knew I had to figure out a way how to get involved. So I did this real low budget video for these people, and returned for a shot at doing a Quiet Riot video if they liked my work. And this Quiet Riot video, I had a concept for it, and it turned out to be a massive hit. It was called Come On, Feel the Noise.
I remember it well.
Yeah. And the record label guy, real tough guy, legendary in the music business, Larry Stessel, he held his court during music video editing in those days. We had the band, the management, 4 days, and we just didn't make any progress. And I, on Thursday night, said, why don't we take a break? Come in Monday and let's start over. And after a few minutes of hemming and hawing, they said, sure, we'll do it. And I stayed and recut the video from scratch. Mm-hmm. And I asked Larry to come in an hour early on that Monday. And I knew, man, I was shaking. I knew that it was a make or break thing for me, because I was doing something that wasn't really cool, to be honest with you. Anyway, I played it for him, and he sat there stoic, kind of angry looking, and he said, play it again. And I'm shaking. I swear to you, I was shaking. And I played it again. He goes, we're done. No changes. And, it was that crazy famous video where the guy pulls the big plug out of the wall, and the wall falls down. Yeah, anyway.
I remember it well.
He was Michael Jackson. He got promoted to be Michael's handler at Epic Records. Mm-hmm. So he awarded all the music video contracts. And when it came to doing something like that Man in the Mirror was like I can't explain it, man. The story, it explains itself, but when you want me to get into sort of how it was put together.
Do it.
The collaboration.
Go for it. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
This guy, Larry Stessel, called me and didn't even put the thing out for bidding. He just said, I know you're the guy. And I didn't really know I was the guy at the time. I just thought, the chance to work with Michael was what it was all about at the time. And I was asked to meet Michael at Frank DeLeo's house, his manager in Encino. And I pull up and in the driveway, and this blue Toyota, nothing fancy, with very tinted windows, pulls up, and out of it gets Michael Jackson.
Driving himself?
And driving a little blue nondescript Toyota. It was so awesome, man. I loved it. He's only a few blocks away, but we met out in the driveway, and we had never met. Actually, I take it back. We had met in person. I'd done a bunch of promos and some stuff. But anyway, so we went into the attic. Now, an attic there is, at Frank DeLeo's house was amazing. It's no attic. But Michael would live there. They had fixed it up where Michael could hide out. It was close enough to their compound, but I think his dad was a tough guy at the time. But they told me sort of the idea of, what they wanted to do. This Frank DeLeo, the manager, had his idea, and Larry from the record company. And I looked at Michael and I said, Michael, what do you want to do? And he did this to me. He says, come here. And he took me over into the corner, and he wouldn't let the other guys near us, and he said, this is what I wanted to do. And he started writing all these events of tragedy and world change and monumental events, Kennedy's assassination, the shuttle disaster, on and on, racism and the, everything he could think of. And I sort of looked at how he was writing it out, and a lot of it had to do with his age and a lot of the events that had happened. So I while what am I trying to say? During his age span, and I happen to know a bit more about history, I think, than he did, since I went to school. But basically, what we decided to do at the time is he wanted to do a video that spoke to everyone, no matter what language you might speak, or where you might live, with no template. I'm sorry. So I had, I must have been 27 years old, maybe. I was just a baby.
Hey, Don, let's do this. Let's do this. We're getting close to the break. Why don't we do this? Because this is a great part of the story to stop. We'll come back to this at the break. But this is Don Wilson. He's a Gulfport native. He went out to Los Angeles to pursue his dream. He became a pretty famous video producer and editor. He's telling the story about working with Michael Jackson to do the video for the Man in the Mirror song. Before we go any further with that story, I want to go ahead and go to the break. We'll come back. We'll continue the story. It's a fascinating story, fascinating conversation. We'll see you after the break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I've got Don Wilson here. He grew up in Gulfport, went off to Los Angeles to pursue his dream, and he's one of those people that have done incredible things in his life. And when we ended just the last segment, he was beginning to talk about his collaboration with Michael Jackson on the Man in the Mirror song video. Why don't you pick it up from there? The chorus actually played into this in a big way and ended up touching people around the world. But continue your story, and maybe you just share the chorus.
You bet. It's certainly worth repeating. And the chorus repeats several times. And one of the great things about it is that it's rare that words are as musical as they are in this song, but it's so impactful, as you said earlier. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. It happens several times, and the reason I emphasize that change, in the video there is a key change and a picture. I have a picture of one of those B-29 Stratoforces dropping bombs in Vietnam, and I painted all the bombs red, and it turns into a nuclear bomb the next shot. That to me is the character arc or the change of the video. And it was one of three key moments in that video. There's so many interesting things about it, dude. It was, not only was it fateful for me to get, but sitting there with him telling me the things that mattered to him in his life. And at the time, he had sold, 100 million records with Thriller. But what I didn't know, and I found out a couple hours later, is that was Thanksgiving Day I met him, by the way. And the day before, Valerie Harper and Dennis Weaver, who was McLeod, I think it was, had a organization called Life. Love is feeding everyone. And some people had broken in and stolen all their food. And Michael sent $50,000 cash anonymously to feed all those people. Never, ever did it come out. And it blew my mind. And that, the spirit of that and them talking about how they pulled it off totally infiltrated this Man in the Mirror thing. I think I walked in there thinking originally we were going to shoot a guy on Skid Row giving a homeless mom his overcoat. That was sort of the beginning of this thing, and it ended up being what it was. But as I was saying in the first segment, we sat and started writing all these things, and I started pulling up some stuff from history, growing up in the South, remembering all those 60s images that were just ingrained in all our heads, and I had some other ideas to add to it. But we literally just sketched out. We didn't really outline it. from beginning to end, just things that had happened. And it, once we had spent maybe 45 minutes doing it, he looked at me, had tears in his eyes. He said, I can't keep doing this. And I had no idea, but the only time he watched the video until the night of the Grammys, when he sang it live with Andre Church and the chorus behind him and fell to his knees, if you remember. Mm-hmm. He only came in my edit bay one time, and I had not quite finished it, and he couldn't finish watching it. He broke down in tears. He was so, and I never, ever watched the video until I put the last shot in.
Wow.
I went all over, dude, it was such a crazy thing, but I had to come up with this process where, how you go to get a ultrasound for the baby and they print out that thermal paper, right? And it gives you a little picture. Well, I used that out of a videotape machine with the time code window, and I would print out images with the time code and hang them all over my edit bays. And people thought I was a mad scientist, but I literally would kind of cut and paste like you would in print the video. And in my head, I knew several key moments, but I had to go all over the world, Ricky, no internet. And everywhere I would go, stock footage houses, networks, Pathé, archives, give me your worst, most horrible, devastating stuff.
Wow.
And man, it was, I would sit there all day and go through this stuff, famine and torture and, just horribleness, but looking for the stuff that, I thought could make a video. We had no idea, but check this out. Everything in that video had already been seen before.
Yeah.
My challenge was, how do I get people that probably turned it off once before, same old thing, enough famine, enough homeless people, it kind of becomes mundane to how do I get them to pay attention to it? And, it was a challenge, but I committed myself to never, ever stopping and rewinding the video and playing it up to where I was.
Well, one of the interesting things about the video when I read about it was that Michael Jackson only appears in one scene at the end of the video.
That's right.
How did you decide that was going to be the way that he would be in the video?
Either shortly before or shortly after, there's a little scene I shot in a park here in Burbank. And one of my children's in it. They do the peace sign. And in that shot with Michael, with all those red kids, I believe it was Japan, they're all doing the peace sign. So it was a connectivity thing. It had nothing to do because Michael was in it. In fact, he actually considered asking me, he said later, to take that shot out because he just didn't feel worthy.
Wow.
And I had to have one moment of him in there somewhere. Just
now, Don, I'm curious.
When
you again going back to the chorus, when you think about, I think about Coast Vue and the people that I'm interviewing, and the fact that I'm wanting to focus a very positive light on people who are wanting to make a difference in the community. But this thought that every single person, each and every person, can change the world. How often did you guys reflect on that?
Man, I mean, you're so right, and. It's 2020. I did this in 1987, 88, and it's still relevant. It's, it's not dated. And it's like you said earlier before we went on the air talking about how you were approaching this thing. That's what made it work, Ricky.
Yeah.
Finding that vein, whatever that was, and tapping into it. We all have it. And you can, it just happened to have music along with it, but a great novel, a great, impactful movie. It's that same kind of thing. It was just the first time it had ever been done, with no artist in the picture, mostly news footage. But if you go back and look at it, the things I really, 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 really felt necessary, I painted. I took the casket, Kennedy's casket, and I painted the American flag red, white, and blue. And it's a monochromatic shot.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm curious, when the video was released, did you have any idea that it was going to blow up the way it did?
No way, man. Because he wasn't in it, and it was so weird and so different. I just thought it was going to be what we call a Tuesday premiere. Tuesday was when MTV would premiere, big videos, and who knew, man? I mean, it's still, one of my partners sent me a thing the other day, and he posted 4 years ago on YouTube. a copy of Man in the Mirror, and it's over 250 million views. And it's mind-boggling, man.
Wow. So
I still get, tech email and letters about that thing.
Take me.
It was, it was.
Take me back to that time. So it blew up, and you saw the contributions that MTV gave to it. But how did it change your world?
Man, it really did. It was. In the meat of the MTV reign, and it was a tough nut to crack to get to that A level of stars, and this surely did it for me. But what it did is people took me very serious as an editor, and what I mean by that is, technique is one thing, and you can pretty much edit by numbers. It's just the way that the programming is designed, but that thing was all about vibe. And there's a me shot in there when baby Jessica is saved, and there's a little piano twinkle and the guy pats the other guy on the back. That's my shot. I've always got a me shot. My youngest child is in an incubator, the shot before the last shot that dissolves into the planet Earth from the moon. But there's these moments in the thing that sort of represent life. You've got all the horribleness and then war. And out of that nuclear bomb, I have Begin, Sadat, and Carter with the peace sign, the peace handshake, you remember?
Yeah.
So it sort of, to me, was, in my own weird way, reconstructing history of relevance and emotion as I saw it, right?
So we're getting
my
close.
idea has always been if it makes me feel something, I bet it'll make other people feel something.
So we're getting close to the break.
I'm kind of jaded.
But how do you sum up working closely with Michael Jackson?
Man, I tell you, it was. I know he had a weird last decade or so, but it was phenomenal. He treated me like a king. I don't know how else to put it.
Between Thriller and Bad, there couldn't have been a bigger time in his life in terms of his stardom.
I had. They made me get a building in Burbank because I continued working with him for 15 years or so, where he could drive two Rolls Royces. Here was the thing: two Rolls Royces had to pull in and be able to pull a door down and hide.
Let's do this. And, I want to hear that, and then I want to hear what was next. This is Don Wilson. He's a Gulfport boy who went off to L.A. to pursue a dream and did some amazing things. And it's just great having this conversation and reflecting on his life and his accomplishments. We'll be back after this break.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Nada's son, someone we're really proud of, Don Wilson from Gulfport, who went on to Los Angeles to pursue his dreams. And we were just sort of finishing up a story about his collaboration with Michael Jackson on the Man in the Mirror video. But before we leave Michael, I just thought that contrast you were about to talk about before we went to break of when you first met him, he pulls up by himself in a Toyota, and you were about to talk about like two Rolls Royces and a bay so he could hide. Finish that.
Well, it's true. So he traveled with with an entourage, and there were two Rolls Royces, one driven by Miko Brando. Marlon Brando's son was his driver and sort of bodyguard, not really a bodyguard, but I guess Michael saw him that way. But you had to have two places secure enough and where you could hide two Rolls Royces if you were going to work with Michael. I thought that's kind of funny. But I swear he's the kind of guy that would drive that Toyota all over. Man. He told me he drove it every Sunday.
And that's so funny. He wanted his independence,
Yeah. Before we leave, let me just tell you one quick thing about him. Years later, I got a call to meet him, and I went and met him in his office, and he handed me this book. It was called Hollywood Kids, and Barbra Streisand had written a song for him called Have You Seen My Childhood? And he played it for me, and was heart-wrenching. And I knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to do Man in the Mirror, but for him. Mm-hmm. And it couldn't be done. I had already told him years ago that something like that couldn't be done. So he was going to do a thing about, the awfulness of all the young Hollywood actors, but with him in it somehow.
It's
but
interesting
I just thought how tragic that.
In reading and preparing for the show, it's interesting. I mentioned this to you, but the Man in the Mirror that you did the video for, and the Man in the Mirror that existed after he died, I think it was the last song played at his memorial service. It represented two different things. It became more of a reflection on him. What happened? People asked this big question. But you were with him during the heyday. But what happened after that? What it opened up great opportunity for you, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. Well, I kept working with him for 10, 12 more years off and on. But Bon Jovi was kind of the next big bang. I was with a group of people, and I was doing Mr. Belvedere during the day. Mm-hmm. And this facility was on the Paramount lot, and we were in literally the walls. Were the old Desilu Studios, and there was "I Love You, Lucy" written by Desi Arnaz on it. They had preserved, mm-hmm. And at night I would edit music videos because the money we didn't really know what we were doing and what to charge, but shortly, I'd say within a year and a half or so, music took over, and I was able to get away from the sitcom thing. But Bon Jovi came to us with a manager, guy by the name of Doc McGee, just legendary in the business. And I think they had sold maybe 6,000 records. And we went out on the road and just shot everything we could think of. And, it was the beginning of the hair band era, as they call it. But we did Wanted Dead or Alive, You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, and I forget, Slippery When Wet, a few other ones, but out of that one, Wanted Dead or Alive was another huge hit for me, and it was right on the heels of Man in the Mirror. Wow. So I got known all of a sudden for this rock balladeer guy. Nothing like I really was or wanted to be, but, you never know. So I must have done so many of these, but ironically, I was doing a video for Johnny Clegg, and we were in Berlin when the wall came down. And we ran over there with cameras and a little CD player and shot the video while people were banging through the wall. It was just because of Man in the Mirror. And it's called One Man, One Vote. All these message videos.
Yeah.
But I, not only Bon Jovi, Pink Floyd, we built a stage in Venice, and 2 nights before the show, they had a massive storm, and the whole stage floated up and away because they had basically made a floating stage out of half the harbor, and they got it back together somehow. I don't have any idea how. It was just an amazing feat. But and Barbra Streisand, which was still to me probably I thought it was way cooler than even Michael. I've always been a big fan of hers, man.
So there's a lot. People can read all about you if they go online. But I'd be remiss, man. No, it's not boring. My gosh, we could spend a whole show just 5 hours talking about it. Kind of like I'd like to get on those drums behind you. Let's have an amazing
drums. My friend. I'd love it.
But let's. I want to do this though. Gulfport, you grew up in Bellevue, and it really is super influential in your life, isn't it? That you were born here and began to have aspirations here. You actually spent some time at WLX for a short period of time after having your own recording studio. Tell us about that.
Right. Man, I hope that era still exists down there and everywhere for that matter. But it's with Ricky, we came from an era and a place during that era that I am convinced was unlike any other place on this planet. A lot of honor and integrity, and we didn't fist fight. There weren't hoodlums in our group. There was a lot of I don't know what better word to call it, but just an amazing culture within a culture that I think we came from. Maybe 2 grades before mine or yours, I was Jill's.
Yeah.
And and maybe one or two after, but that 5, 6, 7 year stretch, some amazing people came out of there. I'm not quite sure why. I think that maybe the two schools thing had something to do with it, but I'm not quite sure, man. But,
I think it was our parents, all of our parents wanted us to have more than they had. And
no doubt.
And it was
no doubt.
There was, we were all moral and ethical, and the school system was good, and we stayed in the school system together for all those years.
Right.
I don't know, man. It was awesome.
On weekends, we either went to the river up to Cuticle Bluff, or I played golf with my dad, or we went fishing.
Yeah.
There was none of this fractured family stuff, It was, and nobody thought any different. That was just the way life was, and it was fantastic.
I have a picture that
worship my childhood. I just love it.
A picture that Tim Holloman shared with me of this little, your little boy band. But we were all driven. We were all being impacted by the Beatles and others during those days, and it really, there's the picture there.
Isn't that amazing? I love this picture.
Tim Holloman told me he was your manager because he had no talent. So
it's the truth.
And there's Benny on the drums.
So
and is that Gordy or Gordon Mike right there?
So Gordy, Tim Holloman, Benny Glass on drums.
Yeah.
Steve Hunter and Tom Paxton.
There you go. Look at it. You're so serious. Everybody's serious.
We were called the Devil's Disciples.
What a great memory. What a great memory. So how did you decide?
2 months before Camille, by the way.
Yeah, that picture was from May 1969, actually. Yeah. So how did you decide, okay, man, I'm packing it up. I'm going to L.A.?
I was at WLOX 4 years or so. I had built a recording studio and did a record. It's kind of worked out pretty well, but my dad took me to a holiday party at WLOX. And when I went on a tour of the control and went to the control room with Ray Williams, I'll never forget it. My heart sank. Right then and there, Don Wilson got that gift of knowing what he wanted to do the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. How awesome is that? And so I dug in, man, and I don't know, Ricky. I can't tell you what happened, but I changed into a man with a purpose from a punk with a TR7 or TR6. That's what it was. I thought I was cool because I had a cool car. That, that's kind of all that mattered to me.
Yeah.
When I was, in the beginning, and I went to Lebanon and stayed in a hotel for days while they took turns shooting at us. I've been all over the world because of whatever we got. Look what you did, man. I mean, you ran a huge newspaper, and I've just always been in awe of that. Ironically, we worked across the street from each other.
Yeah.
But we came from that era, Gary. All these people, very, very few people were bailouts, I guess. I don't know what else to call it.
And I've talked to several of them on the show. David Ishii, the new Supreme Court justice, is from Bellevue. Talked to him yesterday, and he talks about the impact of growing up in Gulfport and what influence it had on him. Of course, Roy Anderson, had a terrific conversation with him, and there's so many others. But it's been a hell of a ride. It's so awesome that in spite of where we all have landed in our lives, that we kind of stay in touch, and it's great to be in this venue now and have an opportunity to take all that experience and not get hung up in what it is you do, but you actually have a wonderful message for people in the experience that you've gotten, and you coach young people all the time. So what we're going to do, Don, when we come back from the break, we've got a few more minutes. I want to see what the open items are that we need to talk about, but I also want to hear what is your advice to young people that are thinking about doing whatever they want to do in their life, and I want to reflect on that for a second. So when we get back, we'll continue our conversation with Don Wilson from Gulfport, who went to Los Angeles to pursue his dream, and he achieved it in more ways than one. So we'll be back after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We're having a conversation with Gulfport native Don Wilson, who went off to L.A. to become one of the most sought-after video producers and editors in the country. And we've had just a really good conversation. And Don, one of the things I want to focus on is something you said a few minutes ago. You were talking about when you got out there that you were just, if you just show respect and sort of this yes ma'am, no ma'am thing that you learned as a kid. What many of my guests have said, that when people leave Mississippi and go somewhere else, they have to dispel some myths first about whatever the perception might be. But then when people get to know us, when we're doing these things outside of Mississippi, they actually find out, well, number one, we can hang. And number two, we're actually pretty nice people, aren't we? But it's those values that you learned, we call it Coast values or Mississippi values, whatever it was. And actually, you were creative already, but you instilled in yourself these things that caused people to want to work with you. How important was that?
Ricky, I can't stress it enough how, especially in the early going of my career, what coming from the coast did to my career. I dressed nicely. I was polite. If there was a woman, I made a special attempt to make sure she felt like I noticed her. And every job I went for, that was the deciding factor. They always told me, we picked you because we thought you were a nice guy.
Wow. Isn't that incredible?
I know, dude. And I'm telling you, I just, it was coming from there, and it wasn't even that my parents, they didn't drill it in us. It was the culture.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody, our neighbors would discipline us if we were, if they felt necessary. It's really interesting how
I saw this.
I hope it's still that way.
I saw this on some of my corporate work as I went along, that super successful people often became jerks. So you see a lot of jerks in L.A., don't you? You see a lot of jerks in L.A.?
Oh, man, yeah, you do. But, surprisingly, maybe it's because I gravitate toward people of a certain kind, but you'd be surprised how the jerks get eaten.
I get that.
Only the ones with a lot of power or money stick around, but if we don't need them, we don't play with them.
Yeah, I get it.
And it changes people. I'll tell you.
So
it used to be a lot of posers in this business, and everything in every business is trimmed down so much. But you don't get away with it anymore.
I think the powerful message here is, and we're kind of winding down a little bit, but the powerful message here is that no matter where you go in your life, you never outgrow, or you never get to a level where being kind isn't still one of the most important things on the list. What's your advice to young people these days, Don?
Well, several things. I mentor. I produce a lot of bands, and the band I have now is now they're all 21-year-olds. But I stopped for a year and said, we're not doing music. We're going to learn how to be young men. And they were great kids to start with, but they just didn't have any functioning ability to be adults, I didn't think. And it's changed their lives. It's changed their music too. But you're going to get an opportunity at some point. What are you going to do with that opportunity? You've got to be smart enough not to take an opportunity that you're going to fail at. But if you get that opportunity, it's not just skill. It's how do you make the people around you feel? Do they want you back? Can you lead a team or be on the team? And but all of that tends to come from how can you be one-on-one with yourself? And what I mean by that is, how many people do I know, and probably you too, and all of us know, that just say, I can't stand to be alone.
Yeah.
I can't stand to be alone. And, that to me, that's a red flag. But I get a lot of kids who they're looking for me to teach them something, right? And I refuse to do it. I'll be a resource to help them learn, but one of the things that happened to kids as it got easier in computers and so forth is, well, what do you have for me next, right? You and I came from, Mama, give me something to do with my hands.
Right.
So by the way, just to interject, I have a couple other things. I just want to show you. These are from 2 of my recent cars, right? So mud bugs, obviously, and the Super Bowl score. Just to show you how much the coast is still in my blood, man.
Hey, we're about to run out of time, but hey, where are you sitting? What's going on behind you?
Oh, this is my recording studio. I have 3 edit bays, a graphic room, and this recording studio here. We do a lot of sound mixing for the TV shows and concerts I do, and like I said, I'm producing records with young bands. In fact, I have a young band here that they're like Cage the Elephant and Muse and a little bit of Zeppelin, and I have a lot of high hopes that I'm going to be retiring on the road with a young rock and roll band.
And you're looking out over the hills. You have a beautiful view out to the hills, don't you?
Really do. Yep. I'm looking at it past the camera right now. It's just gorgeous.
Hey, Don, we're out of time. I wish we had.
Sorry. I could go on for hours, but
no,
thank you, Ricky.
I want you to go on for hours because, we're proud of you, man, and keep up the great work. It's great to stay in touch, and I can't say congratulations enough, and continue to represent us well. Send our love.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Send our love to Jill.
You bet I will.
Okay, buddy.
Goodbye,
take care.
Coach. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Subscribe for free to the Coast Vue podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.